right, good morning, everyone. I don't know about you guys, when there's children's story, I tend to listen more than the children. I don't know, it's always so intriguing. It's like no matter how old you get, there's some valuable lesson in a children's story for everyone. And I feel that when Jesus spoke and he gave his parables and such, it was much the same. From young and old, learned and unlearned, everyone could get something from the way Jesus spoke. And I think that's a good lesson for us, that we should try to speak in the same way. Now, as Lily has stated, I am not new to this church. I've been attending this church a long time ago. I actually got baptized in this church, and the pastor at the time married me and my wife. So this church kind of feels like home to me. When I come here, I don't feel like I come to sort of a church I've never been to. I always feel like I just come home. It's very warm, very nice. I am married to one woman, thank God. She could not be here today. She's doing the Lord's work elsewhere. She's doing health ministry for a week up at Camp Frenda. And I brought my sister along with me today. She was kind enough to accompany me, as the Lord said, go 2 by 2s. So I would not travel alone. I brought backup. It's her first time here, so if you have a chance after the sermon, say hi. She's very nice most of the time. All right, so the title for the sermon today is, Has the Chain Fallen Off the Bike? Now that might seem like an odd title at first, but I promise soon it'll make sense. Before we dive in, let's just have a quick word of prayer. Bow your heads with me, please. Father in heaven, I just want to come before you before we begin your message. Once more, we invite your presence and your Holy Spirit in our hearts and our minds and in this congregation. I pray that you hide me behind the cross, Lord. Let me be nothing more than a mouthpiece. I pray that your words may be spoken, Lord, and I pray that the hearts may be open to receive your message, Lord. You have blessed me thoroughly in preparing this message. I pray that you bless the congregation as well. Amen. So, has the chain fallen off the bike? Well, in order for us to understand this, and we will reference this question throughout the entire sermon, I have to start with a story, an experience of mine. And it involves my nephew. I have a nephew. He's 10 years old. His name is Gabriel. Very smart and handsome young boy. And one day I was with him and my sister, so his mother, in Orangeville, where they live, in a little subdivision. And it was a beautiful summer day. This was last summer. And we were outside, and my sister was on the phone pacing, talking to somebody. So I was watching Gabriel. I was making sure he's good. And he was eating snacks. He was eating bear paws, if you guys know the snacks for kids. Right? It's in the shape of a bear's paw and it's chocolatey. So he wanted to ride his bike, and he can't ride his bike while eating his snacks, so I took his snacks. So I was eating his snacks while he was riding his bike up and down the street, and I was watching him, making sure Gabriel is okay. And he was riding the bike up and down the street, and as I was looking at him, I kept thinking that this kid does not have a single problem in his life at this moment. It was just pure bliss. There was sun in his face and wind in his hair, and he was moving forward, he was smiling, and it was just pure joy on this little 10-year-old boy's face. And as I continued to watch him as I was eating his snacks, about 10 minutes into the bike ride, the chain falls off the bike for Gabriel. Now, he immediately jumps off, and he bends over the bike and tries to understand what's happening. And he's spinning the pedal of the bike, but the bike's going nowhere. The chain is off the bike. And he can't comprehend what's happening. And as I'm watching him, he's about 15, 20 feet from me. I offer no help. I wait until he's done trying to figure out himself, and he asks me for help. So I watch him while eating his snacks, struggling. And as I was watching him, you could see on Gabriel's face that he's getting more and more anxious, even panicking. So about 5 minutes of this, he's in panic mode. And he finally looks up from the bike, and our eyes meet. And like a light bulb goes on in Gabriel's head, and immediately runs to me, pushes the bike, and he goes, Uncle Zoli, I broke the bike, can you fix it? Now I look down at the bike and I go, yeah, buddy, I can fix it. I've done this a lot when I was a kid. So I brought a slide here for reference. That's how a chain is supposed to look like on a bike. If you notice, there's a gear in the back, gear in the front, and a small gear at the bottom, and that's the tensioner. That's what sort of pulls back and keeps the chain on the bike. So this is what happened with Gabriel. You see how the chain is off the bike? So you spin it, you're going nowhere. So this little boy comes to me panicking. His mom doesn't know what's going on. She's on the phone. So I go, yeah, buddy, I can fix it. So the way that you fix it, simple fix, you pull the tensioner forward, you loosen the chain, you put the chain back on the spokes, the gears, and away he goes. So Gabriel jumps back on the bike, down and back on the street. As I watch him some more to make sure no car's gonna come in and have issues, he's in pure bliss mode again, smiling, sun in his face and wind in his hair. And you would never have guessed that not 5 minutes ago he was in full panic mode, that he thought the bike is broken beyond fixing. A few more minutes of him riding a bike goes by and me finishing his snacks, and the chain falls off the bike again. But this time, it doesn't just fall off the bike, it gets stuck between the frame and the gear. So if you could see, the red picture is what happened the first time, and the blue picture is what happened the second time. Now, this time, though, Gabriel did not even attempt to fix the bike. It's like he knew that someone's there who can do it for him. So immediately he pushed the bike to me and says, Uncle Zoli, it happened again. Can you fix it again? And I look down and I see that this time it's worse. It's much worse. But I've been through this before, so I know how to fix it. Now, interestingly, if you try to fix the blue bike the same way that happened with the red bike, it will not work. You can pull on this chain all you want. It's not coming out of the frame. It is stuck in there. All it will leave is marks on your hand from the chain, the grease. So the way that you fix it is you take the smallest point of the chain that you can that reaches the gear, you put it on, and then you turn it, and it pulls itself out. So use the bike to fix the bike. Now, if you've never done this before, this is not something you're going to think about. This is something that you have to be shown, right? So I fixed the bike for Gabriel, and he went back to riding his bike. And the chain hasn't come off after that. So there are some things that I want us to remember as we go through some Bible verses here. And that is, we want to correlate a couple things. And one is that being on the bicycle and riding it is what we're going to use as life, moving forward in life. The sun in your face, the wind in your hair, this is good things. This is when life is going well, right? This is when we're going to refer to this, we refer to this as life going well. When the chain falls off the bike, we're going to see as a problem in our life, something that perhaps we're trying to fix, and it's not being fixed that easily. And when the chain falls off the bike and gets stuck in the frame is sort of problem number level 2, like a higher force of a problem that you don't even know where to begin to fix it. It's a much bigger problem than if the chain would have just normally fallen off the bike. So another thing I want us to keep in mind, the last thing is what Gabriel could not fix, what was an impossible task for a 10-year-old boy was child's play for me to fix. So as we look at some people from the Bible about how their chain fell off their bike and how they went about fixing it. So the first person I want to look at is Moses. Now Moses got the best education that Egypt had to offer. Moses was well loved by everybody. He was highly honored and respected. And Moses was next in line to be Pharaoh. Moses is on the bike. There's sun in his face and wind in his hair, and he's moving forward in life. But then one day, Moses is out for a walk, and he sees an Egyptian soldier beating up an Israelite man. And this anger overtakes Moses. And in his rage, he rushes upon the Egyptian soldier and kills him in pure rage. And the moment this happens, this fear overtakes Moses, this indescribable fear that now that he has taken a life of an Egyptian, him not being Egyptian himself, the Egyptians will want his life. So he runs away. He runs away and he becomes a shepherd. So going from the next in line to be Pharaoh to a shepherd is a big step down. Life is not going so well for Moses right now. For Moses, the chain is off the bike. So what does Moses do when the chain comes off the bike? Mind you, by his own doing? Does he go to God and ask him for help the way my nephew ran to me for help? No. Moses just runs away. Another one we could look at is David. Now, David went from being a shepherd to being a king, being highly loved and honored by everyone, having wealth, power, influence, pretty much anything his heart desired. David is on the bike. There's sun in his face and wind in his hair, and he's moving forward in life. But then, as one fateful day would have it, David can't sleep, so he takes a walk on the roof of the palace in the middle of the night in the moonlight. And as he is walking, he sees a woman bathing nearby on another rooftop, a married woman. Her name is Bathsheba. And he takes such a liking to this woman as he's watching her bathe that he calls for her and lays with her. And then soon after, David finds out that Bathsheba is with child. So in order to hide what he has done, he comes up with a plan. And the plan is to call Bathsheba's husband, Uriah, and tell him to go spend some time with his wife. But Uriah refuses. There's a war going on in Israel, and he goes, "My brothers are fighting. I will not go and consume pleasure." So he will not go into his wife. So David has to take drastic measures. A plan has to be devised that is much worse than the original plan. And David comes up with the plan that he's going to send Uriah to the front lines of war to die by the sword. And this way he can hide what he has done. And David's plan succeeds. Uriah dies by the sword. But you see, what you can hide from man, you can't hide from God. So God raises up a prophet. And the prophet goes to David and he says, "I know what you have done. God saw what you have done, David. There will be consequences." And the two consequences that this prophet tells David is, one, the wives that David has will be taken by another man as he has taken another man's wife. And the second one is the little one that's growing in Bathsheba's womb will have to die. Now at this time, David's life is not going so well anymore. The chain is definitely off the bike for David. There's no more sun in his face. There's no more wind in his hair. There's no more forward motion in life. There's no more happiness. There's no more love in his life anymore because of this problem that he himself caused. So, but what does David do? David actually ends up repenting, genuinely and sincerely. Now, mind you, that does not mean that he did not have to suffer the consequences of his actions, because he did. But God reinstated him in favor with himself. He repented. The moment the chain came off the bike for David, mind you, by his own hand, he ran to the Father for help, and God helped. So David did the right thing, unlike Moses. Another one we can look at, and this is one of my favorite ones, is the prodigal son. If you haven't read this, I urge you to read it. If you read it, read it again. It's a great parable. There's a father who has two sons, an older and a younger son. The younger son goes to the father and he says, "Give me my share of the inheritance, because I don't want to stay here anymore." Essentially what he's saying is, "I don't like living with you anymore, Dad. Give me what's mine so I can leave and make my own choices." So the father does that, gives him his share of inheritance, and this young man leaves to a far away country. Notice he doesn't go nearby where his dad might be able to visit him, or his brother might be able to see him, or his father might have any influence in his life. He goes to a far away country, completely abandons the family back home. And once he arrives at this faraway country with his share of his inheritance, he makes some new friends. And he parties, and he drinks, and he eats all day long, every day. Some might say he's living the life. See, this young son is on the bike. There's sun in his face and wind in his hair. And he considers this moving forward in life. But eventually, the money runs out, as money does, and he no longer drinks, and he no longer parties. As a matter of fact, he no longer eats. He goes to his newfound friends for help. But these so-called friends want nothing to do with him now that the money's gone. So he finds himself sitting next to the pig in a pig's pen, in the filth, in the dirt, hungry, starving, thinking he's going to die of starvation. The chain has fallen off the bike for the young prodigal son. Mind you, by his own hand, but it's fallen off the bike nonetheless. At this point, he remembers his father's house, that the servants that his fathers have live better than he currently does. They eat food every day. They sleep in a bed instead of a pig's pen. So he purposes in his heart that he's going to make the long trip back home and ask to be a servant because he's no longer worthy to be a son. So he gets up and he starts to walk. And he rehearses a speech as he walks, what he's going to say when he sees his father. Father, forgive me, I'm not worthy to be a son. Take me back as a servant. Except he does this whole speech so that it flows. And he makes the long walk. But as he's nearing home, his father sees him coming out the window and runs out to meet him. And as he runs up to his son right away starts to speech. Father, forgive me, I've done this. Take me back as a servant. But his father ignores him completely, gives him a hug, and welcomes him back as a son. So what did the young prodigal son do when the chain came off his bike by his own hand? He went to the father to fix it. He also did the right thing. Of course, then there's Abraham. The good old Abraham. I love Abraham. Abraham always has good life experiences. God decides to honor Abraham by calling him out from his family. And God tells him, you and your family, go where I tell you to go, and Abraham, I'll be with you. This is one of the best promises God can give you, is I will be with you. I will make your seed as the stars and the sand of the sea. Abraham, follow me, I'm with you. And Abraham obeys, and he walks with God. And God puts the fear of Abraham into his surrounding nations, so Abraham isn't scared of being attacked. Abraham is wealthy. Abraham has peace in his life. As a matter of fact, the surrounding nations refer to Abraham as a prince. Life is going well for Abraham. Abraham is on the bike. There's sun in his face and wind in his hair, and he's moving forward in life with God. Now, Abraham had a wife, her name is Sarah, and God promises these two that they will have a son. They have no children. Now, this is an impossible thing because Sarah can't have children. She's way past childbearing days. So it's a bit hard to believe for both Abraham, but mostly for Sarah. So a few years pass, and Sarah decides that she's going to help God in making this promise come to fruition. And she goes to Abraham and she says, well, the promise is not happening that God has promised, so why don't you marry my servant Hagar? She's younger, she's still able to bear children, and then you can have a son through her. Abraham, let's help God make this promise, like God needs any help. So Abraham, unfortunately, like a lot of men, listened to their wife. In this case, he shouldn't have, but he listened. And he married Hagar and had a son. His name is Ishmael. And a few years pass, and Ishmael's growing. And mind you, Ishmael may not be his son with Sarah, but it's his son nonetheless. He loves Ishmael. It's his seed. But Sarah gets pregnant. The promise is fulfilled. Miracle happened. The one God said would happen, happened. She gives birth to a son named Isaac. Now at this point, the two wives constantly bicker and argue, which makes the two sons constantly bicker and argue. As a matter of fact, it goes so far that Hagar and Ishmael openly mock Sarah and Isaac, the promised child. And this takes away the peace from the camp. The women are constantly asking Abraham to take sides. He's constantly have to divide arguments between the boys and the wives. It's not going so well for Abraham. As a matter of fact, Sarah comes to him and he says, we can't live like this. Send away Hagar and Ishmael to the wilderness. Now, at that time, that meant for sure death. A woman with her son in the wilderness, they can't survive. And as we mentioned, Ishmael was Abraham's son. He loved Ishmael. The chain didn't just come off the bike for Abraham. The chain got stuck in the frame. Mind you, by his own hand. But this problem is a problem nonetheless. So what does Abraham do? He brings this matter to God. Even though he caused this, he knows where to go for a solution. And God tells him, listen to your wife and send away Hagar and Ishmael. But I will keep them safe. They will not die. Ishmael will be a great nation. So with this, Abraham gains some strength, because when God tells you to do something, you know he will follow through. So when God told him, I will keep the boy safe, now he didn't have to worry about death. So he sends away Hagar and Ishmael. Mind you, it still hurts him. He's a father, it breaks his heart. But now he knows they will not die. See, when the chain got stuck for Abraham, he did the right thing by going to the father, even though he caused it. When Abraham really needed God, God did not abandon him. And when we really need God, despite we are the ones who make the chain fall off the bike in our own lives, God will not abandon you just because you caused the problem. That is Satan's thinking. He wants you to think that way. That because you're in this situation of yourself, God will not help you, like he's happy to watch you suffer. That is not the case. That is not the God we serve. Now, of course, and there's Job. Job, right? Of Job, it is written that he is righteous in all his ways, perfect in all his ways. Job had wealth, a lot of land, cattle, oxen, camel, sheep. There was no war, so he didn't fear that someone's going to attack him. And God proclaimed this of Abraham, that he's perfect in all his ways. What I wouldn't give for God to say that about me. Job is definitely on the bike with sun in his face and wind in his hair, and he's moving forward in life with God. But then, of course, as if you know the story, there's a council where God meets with his angels, and Satan comes and attends this council. And of course, God says, have you seen my perfect Job? He loves me more than anything else. Everything I've told him, he obeys. Hence, he's perfect in all his ways. And Satan simply replies, of course, he loves you. You put a hedge around him. You give him wealth, peace, love, family, health. Who wouldn't love you? Take it away, he'll curse you to your face. A challenge is issued. Now God says, okay, I know Job. I know him well. Everything he has is yours, but you cannot kill him. That's the rule I'm setting for you, Lucifer, Satan. Everything he has is yours, though. Satan gets to work. One day, Job is out and about, or in his house, and a servant comes running up to Job, and he says, Master, 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 all your oxen have died. And as this servant is still speaking, another servant runs upon Job, and he says, Master, 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 all the cattle have just died. And as the second servant is speaking, a third servant comes running up on and says, Master, master, the Chaldeans took all the camel. Gone. And then a fourth servant comes running. And he says, Master, master, your children were in the house of the eldest brother, partying and drinking. And a strong wind came, and the house went over. They're all dead. Master, the kids are dead. And if that's not enough, Moses gets leprosy. Out of all things. See, the chain didn't just fall off the bike for Job. As a matter of fact, the chain didn't even get stuck in the frame. For Job, the bike broke in half. And you see, from Job's point of view, if you read it, there's no more hope. You cannot hope to get back on a bike that's broken and enjoy the sun in your face once more and the wind in your hair. When the bike breaks, hope is lost. But then Job does the right thing. He goes to God with all of this. He doesn't understand why this is happening. This did not happen by Job's own hand, as the previous examples. This was a test. And Job goes to God and he patiently waits. He takes the scripture that says, be still and know that I am God. And God fixes the bike for Job. God does the impossible. As we say, God works best in the realm of impossibilities. And God comes through for Job. He gives Job back everything tenfold that he had lost because he stood the test. Whether it is our fault or not our fault that the chain is off the bike, God is the answer. God will help. So I ask all of you today, has the chain fallen off your bike? Maybe you're in a point where life is going good, where you're on the bike, with the sun in your face and wind in your hair, work is going well, you're moving forward in life. Or maybe you're at a point where the chain is off the bike and you're trying to fix it all by yourself. Or maybe you're at a point where the chain is stuck in the frame of the bike and you don't even know where to begin to fix this problem. You can't even fathom how to start applying a solution to this problem. Or perhaps you're at a point in life where it feels like the bike broke in two, where there's no more hope of getting back on the bike. There's no more hope of maybe going forward, that the problem seems so big that it seems impossible for it to be fixed. Now, all three stages of the bicycle being broken, the solution to it is Jesus. At every single stage. See, the word impossible doesn't exist in God's vocabulary. Can't does not exist. Won't, maybe if he chooses not to. But that he can't do something, that's us. That's human thinking. You know, as a matter of fact, anytime you spend, before you even try to fix your own life, before you try to put the chain back on the bike, go to God for help and ask him for guidance. Because anytime you spend trying to fix the bike by yourself is time well wasted. You see, my 10-year-old nephew would have never been able to fix the bike. He could have spent hours upon hours and days upon days, especially once the chain got stuck in the frame. You could be yanking on that all day, it's not fixing. But what's impossible to him was child's play to me. Me and him, we operate on a different level, the way God operates on a different level from us. His ways are not our ways, it's higher than our thoughts. Let us not try to put God in the box that we live in. So go to God with all your problems, big or small. Whether the chain is just off the bike or whether the bike broke in two. Go to God for all the problems. He will help, even if you yourself caused the problem. God does not abandon you. Those of you who are parents, if your children cause problems, do you abandon them? You don't, right? You help them fix it. Mind you, there are consequences. There's always consequences. But nonetheless, you help the children. God always helps. And what God tells you to do for the solution to fix your bike, to fix your life, do that. Don't complain that you don't like it. We don't get to dictate to God how he solves our problems. We really don't get to put God in a box. See, many people pray to God and they do so with conditions. Such as, Lord, let me help someone today. But could you make sure that person will appreciate the help? And I like that person because I don't want to help someone I don't like. And maybe let him or her be on my way because I don't want to go out of my way. Lord, but I want to help someone. Or Lord, I want a husband or a wife, but can you make them like this and like this and like that? Or Lord, I lost my job, I need another job, but could you make sure it's $100K a year, corner office, not too far from work, nice people, I don't want to have a problem at work with people. Make sure the Sabbath is okay, I don't want to have to fight for you, Lord. Just ease all the problems away. Lord, this is the blessing that I want. As we slowly come to a close, I want to share an experience of mine where the chain has come off the bike for me. And the solution that God proposed was not a solution that I would have chosen, but it was the solution nonetheless. There was a time a few years back, I was in between work. I needed a new job, and I got two offers. I had one from a Volkswagen dealership at Orangeville, which is about a 40-minute drive from where I live. And the manager who was hiring me, so who would have been my boss, was an Adventist. So the moment I said, listen, on Friday, I'm out an hour or two before sunset. Summertime, no problem, but wintertime, 3 o'clock, I'm leaving. no matter what. He's no problem. I understand. That's fine. And the pay was decent too. And I get another job offer from Woodbridge Toyota, which is an hour and 10 minutes one way from my house. The pay was the same. The boss was not an Adventist, but he was still okay with the Sabbath as long as on Thursday I stay later to make up for the lost hours. Common sense dictates that I take the job in Orangeville, does it not? It checks all the boxes. Same pay, closer, Sabbath, no problem. Yes, please. But before I made a choice, as I always do, I brought it to God. I prayed about it. And I kept getting impressed to go to Woodbridge Toyota. And at first, I really didn't like that. I did not want to drive that hour and 10 minutes one way, and in the winter, closer to 2. I did not want to make that trip. But I kept praying, and I gave it a week. And as I prayed, every time I prayed, and every time I got up from my knees, it increased in me that I should take that job like a percentage. It always went up, that this is what God pushes me towards. So after the week I caved, I dared not go against what I believed God was telling me to do. I took the job at Woodbridge Toyota. Now what this has led to is I met a man named Mark there. We were the same age. And Mark and I started Bible studies. It started with him coming to me with problems that he had, and I always offered a biblical solution. And eventually he caught on and he said, you know what, the solutions you give me, they always work. How come? Why are you so wise yet we're the same age? And I said, I'm not wise at all. And I had a Bible in my cubby at work all the time, and I pulled it out and I said, remember what I told you yesterday? It's written here. Remember what I told you the day before? It's written there. All I'm telling you is what's written in this book. The wisdom is not mine. I'm simply sharing it. He asked for a Bible. I gave him a Bible. And this started a Bible study series about 3 to 4 times a week for 6 months. After work, we'd stay back, we'd clock out at 5, and almost until 6, he'd tell me what he read the night before, and he has questions. And as a Christian, this is what you want to hear. I read the Bible, and I have questions. Once I met Mark, I knew why God sent me there. I knew that there was much more of a bigger purpose than my discomfort of having to endure an hour and 10 minutes in traffic and pay more gas and wake up earlier, be home later, etc., etc. I did not like the solution to the problem I was having. But God decided the solution, we are to obey. We do not get to put God in a box. See, it's not a matter of if the chain falls off your bike, but when. Nobody stays high on life forever. Life is full of highs and lows for everybody, whether you're a Christian or not. So I'd much rather have Jesus in my corner when life gets tough. So when the chain falls off the bike for us, it matters how we react. Because you see, we as Christians, I find, we tend to say the right things. You meet someone, you need Jesus. Jesus is the solution to all your problems. And these are all very, very true. You're having a hard problem, let me pray for you. God will help. I know He will. He helps me, He helps you. He loves you just as much as He loves me. We're all sinners. We say the right things. Do we do the right things? When there's a problem in your life, when the chain eventually comes off your bike, what is it that you do first? Do you apply yourself and try to fix it? That's not Christian. Because imagine if everyone's watching, you give the best advice, but when it's time to take your own advice, you go opposite. We have to run to God immediately when there's a problem. Just like my nephew, the second time he learned very quickly that there's no need to get anxious. There's no need to panic. There's someone there who can fix all his problems. God is like that for us. And I physically have to be near my nephew to fix his problem. God does not. There's nowhere you can go where God does not reach. So let us remember that the next time the chain comes off the bike. The first thing is to go to God. Then you, with God, fix the problem. Doing it by yourself is not what we preach. Let's not practice that. It doesn't work. I've tried. So as we're closing, my appeal to all of us today is that whether the chain is off your bike right now, if you're trying to fix it by yourself, stop today. It should end today. Go to God, then continue. If the chain is stuck, and you don't know how to fix it, all the more reason to go to God. He knows how to fix it. He made the bike. He made you. And if the bike is broken in two, definitely go to God because you need a miracle. And if you let him, God will make a miracle for you. So thank you for your attention. I hope you were blessed by the message as I wasn't preparing it. We will have our closing song and then our closing prayer.